Hey everyone, welcome back to another SAT math video. This question comes from the practice test linked in the description below, so please check it out so you can follow along. The quantity d minus 30 times the quantity d plus 30, all minus 7 is equal to negative 7. What is a solution to the given equation, right? So they don't give us a lot, they just give us this equation and they're telling us to find a solution, right? So that implies that there are more than one solution, right? Because they just said a solution, so there could be one or two solutions, right? So let's figure out first what is the concept that we're being tested on. We are being tested on quadratic equations, right? And how do I know that we are being tested on quadratic equations? How do I know that? Well, quadratic equations, when they are factored, right, they always will have two binomial terms, or terms that are made up of a variable and some constant and then another variable and some other constant, right? Since there's two like items in this parentheses, that's called a binomial, and quadratic equations will have two of those, right? Especially when you're in like factored form, right? You know, x plus whatever, like x plus 1, x minus 1, right? So the main thing we're looking out for is two variables, right? When multiplied together will form some sort of squared term, right? Because we know that if we were to multiply and simplify this two parentheses terms, we would get a d squared, right? So that just tells me this is a quadratic equation, okay? So how do we solve quadratic equations? Well, we first always have to do what? We have to factor, right? Factor, and then 2, we have to set equal to 0, okay? So those are the two things we want to keep in mind when solving quadratic equations, right? And then there's actually a third step that what I'll show you, and once you have the third step, you just gotta, find both solutions, right? That would be find both solutions. Usually you would only have to deal with two, but sometimes they might give you three. So lucky for us, we already have a factored version of this quadratic equation. We just need to set it to 0, right? Because right now it isn't set to 0. So let's do that. We will start by always rewriting our equation to keep ourselves organized. So d minus 30, d plus 30 minus 7 is equal to 7. Now we just need to add 7 on both sides. And once we add 7 on both sides, oh, that's a minus 7, right? Yep, so then this cancels out, and then this minus 7 cancels out. So we will then have, if I go down a little bit further, we will then have d plus 30, and then d minus 30, order doesn't really matter, will equal 0, right? So we already are done with step 2, and now we just gotta find both solutions, right? So now from here, how do we find both solutions? Well, since we have d by itself in this term and d by itself in this term, what we can do is rewrite it such that d plus 30 is equal to 0, and then d minus 30 is equal to 0, right? So because mathematically, right, if we have two numbers like this, if we had like one number here and another number here, we have to know that one of them is going to equal 0, right? So that's kind of the logic that we use to like basically rewrite it into this form. Maybe I'll do another video kind of going into more depth why that is, but for now, when you're taking the SAT, just remember that when you get to this form for a quadratic equation, you must split it up into two different equations equal to 0 and then solve for the variable. Okay, so now this is pretty straightforward. All we got to do is just solve for d in both variables, or I'm sorry, both equations, right? So then we do minus 30 here, minus 30 here. So then in this left-hand equation, d is equal to minus 30. And then in this right side, we do plus 30 on both sides, right? And then this one gives us d is equal to 30, right? So those are our two answers. So you could put either 30 or minus 30, and that would be the answer for this question. So there you have it. That's it for this video. What did we do? We were tested on quadratic equations. So how do we solve it? First, we had to factor. Lucky for us, we actually didn't have to factor because they factored for us. Then we set the equation equal to 0. After doing that, we solved for D, right? And how do we solve for D? We solve for both possible versions of D, right? And we did that when we split up the equation on the bottom right here. If I can scroll, yep, yeah, see? So that's when we split the equation. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Don't feel discouraged if this is completely foreign to you, because you just need to keep practicing and it will become easier. So check out Khan Academy and the other links in the description below. They have a lot of good resources for SAT and ACT, and there's some other ones in case you're interested in just learning how I learn from YouTube. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.